Hi, I'm Greg from Zoho Expert, and today I'm going to be making a video on the basics how-to of custom functions. This video was requested by one of our YouTube subscribers, Anthony. If you would like to have us make a video on a topic that you're interested in, please just comment on one of our videos and request it, and we'll be happy to accommodate. Please like our channel or subscribe to our channel, like our videos, and comment on our videos, as this really helps us grow our channel. Thank you. So on with the video today. So we're going to start by just going into settings, and I recommend that you make a button, and that's where you can practice with your functions. So what we're going to do is we'll do a button on products, and we're just going to go to links and buttons. So just to start that again, just to make sure everybody's following along. So we go into settings, then under customization, we're clicking modules and fields. And then we're clicking on the module for products, and now we're clicking on links and buttons. Now here we're going to create a new button, and this is going to just be called test custom function. And when we're asked where we want the button to appear, we're going to say in the view page. So when we're looking in the record for one of our custom functions, and for one of our products. And what would we like to perform when we click the button? We would like a function to be run. So this will be called test basic function. Okay, so this is a basic how-to, so I'm going to just explain every bit as best I can. So the function name is something that you always have to put in, and you can't have any spaces between it here, which is why I have these little underlines connecting the words. The display name you can technically have spaces in, but I just copy and paste the same function name into my display name. Now, I recommend making these as descriptive as possible, and in this case, because it's on a button, I usually would start it like that, so that when I'm searching through my functions, I can always see which are the buttons. Okay, so now we're going to create it. Now, the basics of this and how this starts is you should think about the fact that this function will be run on a specific module or a specific record within the products module. And that's really important because we can then access data from within that record. So for example, we can get the product record ID. Now this is just my name for what I'm calling this bit of information. This is called a variable, and you can think of this as a bucket which you include other information in. Now, this is the parameter from the record that we want to fill inside our bucket or our variable. So to find the list of things, you see you press the hash or the number key, and then you can choose here from one of the things attached to the product. So there might be a vendor attached to the product, there might be a user, or the organization, or a request. But in this case, we just want from the actual product itself, we want the product ID. Okay, and there we go. Now what happens is when this function runs, we can access the function, we can access the product ID inside this custom function from the particular product we are on when we click that button. So if we go here, we can say that the product record ID, well, we don't need to do anything because that's already set. So say we want to get the product record. So we go product record equals, so now we're making a new bucket called product record. And to get that, we're going to use the product record ID. So now when you're typing, there's really handy help. So if you click on this help here, you can click on guide, and it'll open up a guide where you can find out all sorts of information. And over the years, I've read all of these different pages to properly understand it. I've done a lot of YouTube searches, but you can learn so much in here. So what we're going to do is we want to look up this record, yeah, that we're in right now. We want to get all the data from that record. So we're going to type Zoho dot. Now in this case, we want data from the CRM. But as you can see, you can get lots of other data here. So you can get the user ID of the logged in user. So that would be my email address, for example. You can get the current time. You can get the admin's email address, which would be the same for me because I am the admin. So those two would be the same at the top and the third. You can get the current date. You can get the admin user. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is the user name, whereas user ID is the email address. You get the IP address of the logged in user, I believe. You can get the logged in user's name. You can also then now access Zoho reports, Zoho subscriptions, Zoho projects, Zoho mail, Zoho signs, Zoho inventory, Zoho docs. Zoho encryption is really handy, and I use that a bit to make my hashes for when I'm making a unique variable or unique string of data that I then want to use to cross-reference to somebody else. But you can see more about that in my specific videos where I mention that. And you can access pretty much all of the Zoho applications in here. So it's just Zoho dot, and then you can see. So for example, in this case, we're going to use CRM. Yeah. And now when we click dot again, you see there's a whole bunch of other options that open up here. So in this case, we want to get record by ID. So let's find the G. There's get records, but that's not what we want. We want get record by ID. I'm going to start typing it. There we go. Get record by ID. Now it wants to get wants to know what module do we want to get this record from. Now in our case, we know we're working in the products module, products module, and it wants the record ID here. See, number ID. So in this case, we're going to use our product record ID, which is what we set up here. And now we click hash. Now we can info this out. And this, if you know any computer programming, is similar to echo, which is just where it tells us whatever's in there. So in this case, we're going to go info product record. So now tell us what's inside here. And we're going to save and execute. Now it wants me to put in a product ID. So let me just do this on another page. Just going to bring up my products. Okay, so these are my products. So we're going to work on this product up here, and there's the product ID. Okay, so I'm just pasting it in. So save, and there we go. It shows us our product. Okay, so we can do so much with this now, because now this is all the data within our product. So for example, if we want to access any specific bit of data in here, like product category, for example, we can say product record dot get. Actually, let's start this on a new line. So info, let's just draw a line and say info. So product record dot get JSON. So this get JSON here is where we are trying to get a specific value from within our record. So for example, this product category, we can now paste that in there, and it should now print out the product category name. There we go. See, CRM design. Now you can use that to access any value inside this record. And that can be really helpful when you're trying to do things based on what's going on in this record. So for example, you might have a function you want to run if this modified time is in the past. Well, it'll always be in the past. But if this date was, say, not modified time, if it was, due at, like due date or something, and then you'd run this function by clicking the button, and then if this date is in the past, then the function would do something. But if it was in the future, maybe the function would do something else. And you can do that using an if statement. So first, let's bring up this date field. And now pretend to yourself that this modified time is actually due date, okay, or due time. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need to work out what sort of, whether we're able to use this as time or not. Because right now this is just some numbers as far as the computer's concerned. And I don't believe it's actually in time format. So let's just check that. So we say info. And then we want the same thing again here. Let's actually change this to due date equals. So now we're making a new bucket, so a new variable. And in this bucket, we're going to store the modified time. But we're pretending that the modified time is actually a due date. Okay, so now we want to say info due date dot to time. And that's a function that will change the string which is just random text or any text and numbers and letters and things, that is a string, and it'll change it into a time date data type. So let's see if this works. There we go. Yeah, it's worked. But you see, now this is time date. I can tell that because my system has this sort of date format where it's got the day, then org, then the year, and then you'll see here that the time has actually lost itself. So the time has lost, you know, what, 11.5 hours or something. So what we need to do here is we need to separate this out. Now, hopefully you won't have the same issues that my system has, and your time date will be different. But I think this might be because of how I like my date time format. But in this case, what we want to do is we're going to separate out the time and the date as two separate things. So we're going to say the due date, let's call this due date time. And then we're going to say the due date equals the due date time dot get prefix, which means the first part before whatever this is. And in our case, we're going to say T, because if you look here, it goes the date. Where's the modified time? Here we go. So it goes the date, then the T, then the time. Okay, so we're going to say at this T, give us everything before that. Okay, so now if we info this out, we should see just the date. There we go. See, just the date, but still as a string, not as an actual date. All right, so now let's get just the time. So we'll say due time equals, now it's the same as this, but this time we're going to say get suffix, because we want everything after the T. And now we should have just the time. There we go. Now we've got just the time. Okay, so now here comes the hard bit. We need to put the time back in there in order to make this a proper time date or date time. So let's do this. Let's say correct due date time equals due date dot to date, because now we don't need it to time, we just need it to date. And then we're going to say plus plus a space plus due time dot to time. I don't think this will work. Let's give it a try. And then info correct. Now the reason I don't think that's going to work is because I don't think it'll be able to go to time when it's just the time. But let's try. Nah. Okay, so we take this off. There we go. Okay, so now this here should be in the correct format for us to work with. So let's try something here. Let's say that dot to time, and if it's in the right format, it shouldn't change it at all. It might just change the +1 at the end. Yeah, there we go. See, it's just taking the +1 off the end, but it's still got 2 a.m. or 11 minutes past 2 a.m. So that's fantastic. So now we have a corrected time date. Now this is actually quite a complicated thing I've just been showing you here, but it's something that you do have to have as your sort of foundational skills when you're working with custom scripts in Deluge, because unfortunately messing about with dates and times is going to be quite a common thing that you need to know how to do if you're working a lot within records and custom functions. So now we're going to look at the basics of an if statement. So how an if statement works, let's just write one out quickly. So there we go. Okay, so what this is saying is an if statement is everything inside this bracket here, yeah, these two brackets, is our statement. So we're saying if whatever's happening in here, then do whatever's in here. Yeah. So in this case, I'm saying if the due date is in the future, so is larger than the current time, then do this. let's say due date is in the future. Now, we know this isn't the case because the due date is actually our modified date. So when we save and execute this, oh, it doesn't like this. 15. That's strange because we haven't set that permanently. Okay. So what's happening here is I only infoed out changing this to time. I haven't actually saved it in the variable. So now what I'm doing is saying in this variable, save the time version of the correct due date. Okay, so now we're going to save and execute. It still doesn't like this. This is very strange. Let's put it in here. There we go. It likes that for some reason. Okay, so you see nothing has been performed under this line. Okay, now that's because we know this date's in the past. But if we go else, yeah, now everything that's here, so this means due date is in the past. And let's say up here, due date is in the future. Okay, due date is in the past. So now if we save and execute, and we run the function, now we can see here due date is in the past. So these if statements and else statements can be very, very helpful. So let me try to show you a simple explanation as to how these can work as well. So in custom functions, let me teach you the basics of some of the text that we use here. So you can select all of these things here, and you can hit Control and then the / button to draw these forward slashes in front of things. And what that does is it comments it out. So the code just completely ignores it. So this is commented out. You also use these comments to write things in here so that you can, show notes as to why you're doing what you're doing, and it helps you remember what's going on for later. Now, let's just do a basic if statement. So we're going to say if, okay, wait, before we do this, let's go number equals 4. Okay, now you note I have not put inverted commas around the 4 because that there is a string, so that's like a word, whereas that is a number. Okay, you can't put text like that without having inverted commas around it, but you can put numbers like that without inverted commas around it. Okay, and then you note that I put this semicolon here, and the semicolon is telling the code editor that that's where this statement ends. So this statement ends here, the statement above it ends here, the statement above it ends here, and it's how the code editor works out what's going on. Okay, the only time you don't do that is when you're making an if statement like this and you have these curly brackets and then the curly and inside these brackets, because then the code editor knows that what's inside the brackets is the bit of code. So we're saying number equals 4. So we're saying if number, now here we've got equals. Now you note that there's 2 equal sign next to each other. Now that means it's exactly equal to. We've got exclamation equals, which means it's not equal to. Then we've got less than, larger than, less than or equals than, and greater than or equals than. Okay, so in this case, we're going to say if number is equal to 1, do this. Number equals 1. Okay, now we know that's not the case here. Now we can say else if number equals 2. Do this. Number equals 2. And we can do that same thing again. And finally, we can do it one more time. Okay, so now what I'm doing is instead of writing in 4 here, I'm saying number equals, and you see how I've got these inverted commas around my text, and I've got my space in here before the inverted commas. So I want to use this whole bit here, including the space on the end, and then I'm saying plus number. Okay, so now the reason I've done that is because now I can just copy this same statement and use it in every single one of these. Now, if I'd hard-coded the number 4 in here, then I would have had to change that for every single one. Now, this is not a very efficient way for the code to work, but it's just a way that I can explain it to you. So now we go save and execute. And you see here, it says number equals 4. So that means it's running this one. So I'm just going to change this here so that you can tell that it's definitely working off the if statement. See, 4. Okay, so now the more efficient way to do this would have just been to not have an if statement and just say number equals number. But here we're checking whether the number is actually equal to 4. So maybe if the number was equal to 4, we'd want to do something else in here. All right, so another thing that we can look at is greater than. So we'll say here if number is, let's say, let me do, okay, so we're going to do less than or equals to. So equal to, less than or equal to. And we'll say less than or equal to 3. And we'll say number is less than or equal to number. Okay. Else, we'll get rid of all this other stuff here. Else, info, number is equal to or greater than 4. Okay, because if it's 3, 2, 1 or less than that, then this will fire. But if it's anything more, so if it's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, anything more, it'll fire this. So we'll end our code there and let's run this. Oh, it doesn't like that for some reason. Let's see why not. Oh, because I've left this blank if statement in the middle of my working here, which makes perfect sense. Okay. And there we go. It says number is equal to or greater than 4. So if we change our number now to 3, we can see number is less than or equal to 3. And this is a really powerful thing to work with. These if statements, I use these a lot because everything you do is really going to be based on if statements. When you're working with code and you want to say, well, you know, if somebody's responded and they've said, yes, they're attending the meeting, or yes, they'll go ahead with the quote you've sent them, then you want to do the next bits of code. So you need to know the if statements in order to do that. You don't want to get involved in too many if statements inside if statements inside of if statements, because that can get really messy to maintain. So try to think of clever ways to write your code. There's lots of cool things you can look at online about this, but that kind of goes into the more advanced side of programming, and I'm just trying to show you the basics of Deluge. Okay, so the next things we're going to go through here is we're going to go through the data types. So again, comment data types. So we have a string. So all of these are going to be put in variables. It might not actually let me do this, so I'm going to call it var underscore string, just because some of these words might be protected. So var string equals, and then this is a string. And I'm going to put some numbers in there. Can contain symbols, numbers, letters, etc. Okay. And this is a number, or technically an integer. Okay. Now, do you know something that I'm not sure about is whether we have a data type for decimals? Yes, we do. Great. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So so this is also a number, but it can have a period in it. Okay, then we have var date. Now, this is a difficult one for me to write out, so I'm just going to put in the current date. Oh, no, that's the current time. Okay. Oh, and you see here, I almost forgot to finish off my lines of code. Okay, so we have number, a string, number, decimal, date. Now, we have a list. Now, lists are, I don't know how I can write them out. So I'm going to write list to make an empty list. And then I'm going to say var list dot add. And then I'm going to say list item 1, list item 2, 3, 0.99. And let's put a date in here, current, oh no, Zoho dot current date. Okay, so now this list includes everything in here. So you can have lists that include strings, numbers, decimals, dates, everything. Okay, so now we're going to show you maps. Now, just a point on lists. If you're aware of arrays in computer coding, a list is like a array without a key. So it's just a value list, you know, whereas a map is like a key value array where you've got, let's do list map equals map. And now var map dot put. So in a list you add, in a map you put. So put, and we're going to say here, now this is the key, so we'll call it key, and then value, and we'll call that value. Okay, now this is important. A list can contain a map. So if we move this up here, we can actually add our map to the list. Vice versa, a map can contain a list as part of the value. I don't think it can be the key, but it can be the value. So now let's go info var list. No, it doesn't like that. Add, it says, oh, okay, so it's add all. Yeah. So add is for one thing at a time. So, and that is the best way to do this. So the best way would have been to go var list dot add, and then here list item 2, and then 3, and then the decimal, and then the current date time, and then the map. Now that's the best way here, okay? And obviously to have this one like that, that's the best way. But you can use add all and have them all on one line if you want to. But the problem is that that can become quite hard to administer, especially as the line gets longer and longer and longer. So the best thing to do is to have it like this. What I generally do is I make my lists or my maps right at the top of the page. And then as I'm working, I say, if this, then add this to that map. And then later, if this, then add this to that list. And that way, you don't have to create the list all at once. You can just add things to it as you're going along. All right, so now if we view our list, there we go. We can see everything inside our list. See, and there's our map. It's really incredible. Okay, so next thing is, okay, let's just put some comments in here for people to follow along. Lists. Maps. These are pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so I am now going to show you loops. Okay, so A loop is where this here has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different things inside it. Okay, so this list has 6 items inside it. So we can say for each item in our list, do this. So whatever I put in here is going to be run 6 times. So I can say here number plus number equals number plus 1. Okay, and now just before we start this, let's say number equals 0. Okay, and now we want to info out the number. Okay, so now it's going to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. See, isn't that incredible? Now, what you can do is you can also work with what's inside here. You can also work with what's inside here. So we can say just info item. And now each item will appear on its own line. There we go. It really, there's so many options here which are just incredible. Where you might use this this loop is if you're bringing in data. Say for instance you search for a bunch of records and then you need to go through those various records to find something or to do something with each record. So let's show you that next. So now we're going to look at the search records functionality. So we're going to say products list, which is just a new variable or bucket that we want to hold this data in. So products list equals Zoho.crm.search records. And we want to search the products module. And here we're going to say where, now we put this as a string with brackets, and we say where the product active field equals, and we want it to be true. So show us all of our products where the product active here, where this field equals true. Okay, and let's run this. Oh, I forgot to end that off. Okay, I forgot to info it out as well. Okay, there we go. So now this should show us all of our products. There we go, there's all of our products. Okay, so now what we can do is we can loop through, remember the loop? We can loop through our products list. So we say for each product in products list, sorry, before we move on. So this equals can also be starts with. Okay, now I'm not going to change this here because we can only be true or false. So starts with doesn't really help us here. But if you were looking for a contact, say you were looking in contacts where the email starts with Greg, then you can do that. And it'll look for all your contacts where the email address starts with Greg, and it'll put them in this list, Greg list. Okay. In this case, we're saying for all products in the products list. So for each of these products, info product.getJSON product name. And there are each of our products. Okay, but you can do amazing things with this because now that you're working within each product, you might want to say update that product. So what we're going to do here is we are going to run a script to work on that product. So the first thing we want to do when we're going to update a record from Deluge script is we want to make a map. So we'll call this product update map equals map. Now we want to put some values in this map. So what do we want to update here? Let's have a look. Let's change the product code. So we're going to say product update map dot put product code, and then the value we want here is we're going to put a number in here. So let's say number equals number plus 1. and then we need to just have a base number, which is equal to 0. So that means this will be 1, the next time will be 2, the next one will be 3. So here we want to call this product hyphen plus number. So it'll save the product code for the first one as product 1, the next one is product 2, and the next one is product 3. Okay, and actually, yeah. Okay, and now what we want to do is we want to say product update response equals, now this is how we update the record. So we say zoho.crm.update record. So module will be products. ID will be from the product, from this product here in the list. So product.getJSON ID. And then this key value here is the map. So what we want to update, what we're going to change inside that record. And now we're going to info out the product update response. So let's run this, and what should happen is this should have a product code filled in, as should my other 2 products. There we go. So it successfully updated all of my products. If we wait here, it should automatically wake up and refresh, but if not, let's refresh it. There we go, product 1. And if we go to products, we can see product 2 and product 3. So that's how simple it is to update things. Now, just bear in mind that when you're creating this product update map, this here is the API name. So, you know, if you wanted to update anything else here, so here, for example, taxable. So taxable is the API name, and then comma, whatever the value is going to be. So the value for each of these is going to be false. So we'll update again. Oh, it doesn't like false. It should be false. There we go. See, you can add 100 different things here. You can probably add 200. You can add as many as you like to your map, and then you feed your map in here. So these are our products. And if we click into one of them, we can see taxable is still false. See, so it's either true or false. Now I'm going to change it to true. And then we'll have to change it back to false. See, now it says true, but now we want to go back and say false. All right. So I think we've covered quite a lot in this video, and it's already quite a long video. So just to have a quick recap on what we've covered today, we've got how to make a function, how to set the variables for your function that you want fed in from the record that this is going to work on. So this we can do because we're making this function on a button. And then how to look up the record from the ID. How to work with the date time. This was complicated, so I recommend keeping this video for refreshing yourself on later. Then we've gone through the data types. So we've got a string, which is text, numbers, letters, etc. And it's always between 2 inverted commas. Then we've got variable, which is a number. So that's just the plain number on its own, no inverted commas, otherwise known as an integer. Then we have the decimal, which is just a number with a decimal point. So this could be, you know, 55.99. That's still a decimal because it's got the 0.99. And it's just a number, but it has a period in it. Then we have the date, and I showed you that. Then we've got maps. Maps are key value pairs. So this could also be, this could be cars, and this could be BMW. You see, or car. and age. And 25. And name. Yeah, so I hope you get how that's working. Okay, and remember, you can also put a list in there, I believe. So we can say list. List is just what I'm calling it. And let's put this as a okay, I believe that will work. There we go. And let's wake this up again. And then we have our loops. So where here we have for each item in the loop, get rid of that. For each item inside this list here, we want to loop them out. Okay, so let's give that a try, and let's turn off this latest one we worked on, which was our products. Oh, we need that. There we go. Okay, so now you can see that our list here has this map in it, and the map has a list in it. You see, list, and then list contains Greg, Tom, and Peter. So you can have a list inside a map, inside a map, inside a list. You know, you can build a whole catacomb of lists and maps if you really wanted to. And that's the basics of it. And then we've got the return, and this is what will show when the button is clicked. Okay, so I'm going to delete all this, and we'll still info out this stuff. Yeah, so let's save and execute one more time, and let's save. And now this button is going to appear on the view page of our products. Save. Let's refresh our product. Hopefully I remember to make this taxable false again. Yes, I did. Good. Now you can see our button here, test custom function. There we go. What will be shown when the button is clicked. Now, one more thing, you can, let's go back to our, oh no, here it is. You can make this return statement, you can make this dynamic. So for example, record updated, and then you can put on the end here your product name, for example. So let's go product record dot get JSON product name. Okay, and we'll say product record updated. There we go. And we can turn all of this other stuff off. So all we're doing now is we're getting the product, we're finding the product name. And now if we refresh our product and click that button again, it says here product record updated, remote Zoho CRM design and customization. See? There we go. Well, I hope you found this video very helpful. If there's anything you feel I've missed or that you'd like more information on, then do let me know. Otherwise, I do highly recommend going into the help docs and reading in here because you can find out so much more. You can find out all about the functionality. So here, like the search records, update related records. That can be quite interesting. There's attaching files, converting leads, upsert, which I highly recommend if you're working with unique files like contacts. You don't want to create 17 different contacts for the same person. So instead you want to upsert based on their email address, so that every time you do an update, if the email address matches, it just keeps that one record and keeps updating that record. But we can go over that another time. Let me know if there's anything else you want to know about. And again, I'm Gregory Moulton, Zoho expert. Please subscribe, please like our videos, please comment on our videos, and please check out some of our other videos. There'll be cards and end screens and all sorts. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.